What's up, y'all? So today we're gonna review episode 3 of the One Piece anime, and I'm recording from my phone this time because it's a lot clearer, and the headset thing wasn't really working with it because it doesn't look very good on. Like I think in my previous video the audio was cutting out a few times, so that's probably gonna be a problem with my Let's Play channel. The audio's I've always had trouble with the audio when recording from my computer. But this episode's called Morgan versus Luffy. Who's this mysterious, beautiful young girl? And this episode adapts the last page of chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And the previous episode adapted chapters 3, 4, and 5. I forgot to mention that last time. And the Japanese air date was November 24th, 1999. The Four Kids dub came out October 2nd, 2004, and the Funimation dub came out May 27th, 2008 on DVD. And here's a synopsis. So I get these on the One Piece wiki, but I edit them so there's more information that talks about like the plot in it, because some of the information's kind of more bare bones. But it's really good though. They're really good summaries though. But sometimes I add some stuff. Luffy returns the katana that he got from the Marine base to Zoro, who uses them to free himself and repel the Marines' attacks. He agrees to join Luffy's crew should he survive. Despite being clearly overpowered by Luffy's devil fruit power and Zoro's three-sword style, because Zoro's attack basically is he uses three swords, two in his hands and one in his mouth. That's his like attack. It's kind of weird, but it's cool. Zoro says his goal is to become the greatest swordsman in the world, and Morgan orders his men to attack them. Morgan himself joins the battle, with his right hand being replaced by an axe blade. Despite Luffy overpowering Morgan, Helmeppo holds Koby hostage. So Helmeppo in the last episode, that's Morgan's son, the villain's son. He's really bad. And threatening to shoot him. Meanwhile, as Luffy is distracted, Morgan attempts to attack him from behind. Luffy punches Helmeppo in the face, and Zoro cuts Morgan down, preventing him from harming Luffy. The Marines, who are aware of Morgan's numerous abuses of power, decide not to continue the battle, instead dishonorably discharging and arresting their own captain. Luffy, Zoro, and Koby go to a restaurant to celebrate their victory. Zoro is shocked upon Luffy telling him that their pirate crew is just him and Luffy. When Luffy says he wants to go to the Grand Line right away, Koby explains how dangerous it is because it's called the Pirate's Graveyard. And he gives some exposition about it and how the One Piece world is divided. And there is a west and east divided by a continent called the Red Line. In the first episode, I forgot to mention the Red Line, but it's like this really big, like, line continent, like red continent, and it splits the One Piece world in two, basically. And it's the only continent in the One Piece world, from what I know. But the Grand Line is where all the pirates go to get the One Piece, and it's a linear sea perpendicular to the Red Line. And he repeats the information we already know from the first episode about Goldie Roger. And Ripper, who's a very minor character, I think he only appears in this episode, is the Marine who had succeeded Morgan as the new base commander, confronts Luffy. He agrees to accept Koby into the Marines upon his request. However, due to Luffy and Zoro's statuses as pirates, he orders them both to leave the town, only promising not to inform headquarters as a gesture of gratitude. Luffy and Zoro agree, But there is a moment, so this is important. This moment's important because it explains why Kobe doesn't go with Luffy and Zoro to join the Straw Hats, which is Luffy's crew. This moment explains it. So Kobe is informed by Zoro that the Marines won't let him enlist if they find out he was a part of Alvida's crew for 2 years. Luffy sneakily covers for Kobe by telling the Marines about Kobe's previous affiliation with Alvida, so she was the villain in the first episode. And this angers Kobe, and it leads to Kobe punching Luffy in the face, and Luffy then attacks him back. And the Marines are then in turn made to believe that Kobe is not associated with Luffy since they just fought each other. And because Luffy just pretended that they were enemies, this motivates Kobe to join the Marines even more than he did before. And then Luffy and Zoro then both decide to just continue their travels. And they don't go to the Grand Line right away though. They go to a place called, I think it's Orange Town. That's the next arc. But as Luffy and Zoro are leaving on their tiny boat, the minor characters from last episode, Rika and her mother, Kobe, and the Marines say goodbye, with Kobe and the Marines saluting them. While the ship is sailing, Zoro asks Luffy why he wants to be the Pirate King. And Luffy responds that he made a promise a long time ago to a person. And we learn the next episode more about Luffy's backstory. And the person that he made a promise to is named Shanks. And meanwhile, a girl, Nami, who I mentioned the last few episodes, who's made cameos every now and then, searches the Marine base for a map of the Grand Line. She discovers that the map had been stolen by another pirate, Buggy, who becomes like a major villain. And Nami refers to him as Buggy the Untouchable. And you'll understand why in a future episode why he's called the Untouchable. But Nami sets sail to confront Buggy and retrieve his map. So, yeah, I'm going to point out the differences from the manga. I think in the next review, I'm going to put notes as to whether a character is like more minor or a major character, just so you guys can like, because like when I'm watching a show, right, like it doesn't have to be One Piece. Like I've been watching Bleach recently, and like some of the characters, like I can't remember their name, like their names. I keep forgetting their names, because especially because they're Japanese. Like the names are Japanese. I'm not used to that because I'm an English speaker. But yeah, but I'll point that out when like a character is more major or minor in probably the next review. So differences from the manga. In the manga, Rika or it's Rika. So Rika's the little girl and Rika's the mom. Who gave so Rika's the girl who gave Zoro the rice ball in the last episode. And then like it got Helmeppo like stomped on it and then Zoro ate the dirty ball. But she treats Luffy and his comrades at her home with a meal. I think I think it's in the manga she's a bartender, and I can't remember if it was in the manga or the anime she's a bartender, but in one of those she isn't a bartender, and in one of those she is a bartender. So I think it's in the manga she is a bartender, but I might be wrong. Another thing is in the manga when Morgan orders several of his men to kill themselves while they protest against fighting Luffy and Zoro, they were about to comply out of fear, and this is completely omitted in the anime, and a few of them give Morgan an angry stare instead. I think this is for PG reasons, probably. I don't know. It's probably just to make it for a more general audience. But the four kids dub is known. That's the previous English dub. There's two, from what I know. There's two English dubs. There probably is more, but there's the Funimation dub, which is like the really popular dub. And then before that, in like the early mid 2000s, there was the 4Kids dub, and like everyone like online hates 4Kids dub because it's kind of, well, the voice acting's okay. I find I've seen a bit of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen a bit of it. But there's a lot of like censorship and like unnecessary things get censored. Like one of the more famous ones is when Helmeppo is like pointing a gun at Kobe in this, I think in this episode, and in the 4Kids dub it's like censored. I think so. There's like a cap on it or something. Like it doesn't even look like a gun. But that's kind of a tangent. But in the manga, more of the townspeople are seen at Luffy and Zoro's departure, and in the episode, only Kobe, Rika, Ririka, Ripper, and the other base marines were present. I guess they did that because maybe it's just time reasons. They couldn't animate all those people, or it could be that it could be like a plot thing because they maybe all those people knowing about where Luffy and Zoro are going to, like that'd be bad for Luffy and Zoro. So maybe that's, anyway. Who knows why they did that? But they're just like really minor changes. It rarely is like a very major change. I just like pointing out the differences from the manga. If you guys want me to stop pointing out the differences from the manga, just let me know in the comments. Because some of them are not very necessary. They're just minor changes. But some notes. So the devil fruits of Luffy and Buggy are seen in a silhouette. So Buggy has a devil's fruit, and I'm not going to explain in this review what it is. I'll explain in a later one. But the fruits names are the Gum Gum no Mi, so the Gum Gum fruit in English, and the Bara Bara no Mi. Yeah, so that's the chop chop fruit. So I'll just explain. So Buggy's fruit is like if you chop off a part of his body, like it it like levitates. So there's parts like you can't really chop off, like you can't beat him with a sword because if you chop off, he'll just like detach a part of his body. So his power is he can detach like his head from his body. Like he can survive with just his head. It's really weird. He has a really weird power, but we'll be seeing that in a future episode. And in Silhouette, um, Shanks, Buggy, and Goldie Roger appear as well. And here's my opinion of the episode. And a lot of what I said in the last episode's review applies to this one, since it's the conclusion of the Morgan story. It is sad to see Kobe leave for the Marines, but he followed in his dream. I really like Kobe and Luffy's fight as it shows that Luffy cares for Kobe. Something I should have mentioned in the first episode is that in One Piece, the main characters all have like a dream or a goal they want to accomplish, all the main characters. So like for example, Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, Zoro wants to be like the greatest swordsman in the world. And but how that relates to Kobe, there's a fan fiction. There probably is a few fan fictions, but there's one in particular where Kobe joins the Straw Hats instead of the Marines, and it's called Kobe's Choice. And I've only read a little. I read up to where they went to that like dinosaur island. I read up to that part. I'm not gonna say anything more because I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, several changes happen. I might read that like on another channel one day. I'm not probably gonna read this. This channel isn't for like readings and that. That's for another channel. But yeah, I like maybe to do a fan, like read a fan fiction of that. I find all the popular One Piece fan fictions I've seen, a lot of them are just kind of just telling the same story, but just alterations. Like if Luffy had like a different power, it's kind of, I don't know. I find they're kind of lame. I mean, if he has like a greater power, and he's like one shotting all the characters in the story, Like if he had a lava power or electric power or some water power or something, like it makes him overpowered and like you know what I mean? Like it makes the main character overpowered. There's no struggle. Like I think the main character should be like more weakened and then gain power gradually, and not like. But I find most of the fan fictions that are written just kind of have like Luffy. Like some of them even have like his memories like transplanted from like the end of One Piece to like when it starts. I don't know. Well, it can cause some cool changes, I guess, but I don't know. I like more like down. I like more like slice of life type like fan fiction, like more like they do day to day things and that. I like, but I find there's not very many of those fan fictions. But I like though, like for example, um, like them going to the mall or something, or like I don't know, like them going out to like a restaurant or something, like doing like ordinary thing. I like that and like the funny dynamics that can cause sometimes. I like that type of stuff. But I also like adventure stories too. Adventure stories are really cool. But where was I to? But okay, so this is about Nami. So, as seen in the episode, Nami's reason for being seen early is to get the map for the Grand Line, which I like that part. Because the filler actually makes sense because it explains why she's in contact with Buggy later on, which you'll see. And another thing is that from this episode on, Zoro becomes Luffy's second in command, or first mate. And Zoro, I noticed, is a lot happier than he acts later on in the show, and how he's depicted in the live action show. And I was wondering why that is. It could be just like Oda didn't fully like under like have his character figured out yet. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's because he experiences stuff later on too that makes him like more serious. But it kind of doesn't make sense because in the live action show he's like really serious all the time from the beginning. So it could be just it's just a minor little thing, but it doesn't really affect what I think about the episode. I just found that kind of strange. But yeah, I theorized in my script because Luffy just saved his life and now he can pursue his goal while he's a part of this new pirate crew, the Straw Hats. So because he has like a new thing he's doing, I guess he was really happy, like he's laughing and that. That's what I theorized in the script. But you guys can let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. Um, but overall, I didn't really. There's nothing really wrong with this episode. I found it was pretty good. I gave it like a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5. Uh, like I said, I think in the previous review, if there's probably the filler ones will be lower rated because I'm not really. Well, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. So I don't know. It depends. And some of the ones like with bad pacing, like in the Doflamingo arc, and that like episodes with really bad pacing, I'll give like maybe 2 or 3. I don't know if I'll ever give an episode a 1. Well, there's one filler arc I didn't like. Really didn't. Yeah, I thought it was really boring. But I don't want to spoil it because it's like much later on. But it was about like yeah, I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you all had a nice day today. And I'll see you guys later.